Let me set the scene. The year is 2019 and I just got myself a brand new computer. And you see, this is significant because the computer I had before it was a little bit of a potato. You see, I couldn't play any new games for the last 5 years. This meant that there were games from 2014 all the way to 2019 that I just couldn't play. But this new computer I had could run games from the current year, and well, I had a lot of catching up to do, and one of the games that were right on top of my wish list was a game called The Witcher 3. You might have heard of it. You see, I really loved The Witcher 2, and I really desperately wanted to play The Witcher 3, and well, I wasn't disappointed. And even though the main game had quite a lot to offer, there were still 2 expansion packs or DLCs that I had to dive into, and dive into them I did. The Art of Stone DLC was amazing, I really loved it, but the Blood and Wine DLC, that was where things get spicy. You see, not only is there an argument that the Blood and Wine DLC is probably better than the main game, there is, in my opinion, a pretty strong argument that this is one of the most beautiful open worlds that ever existed. It is most certainly the most beautiful open world I have ever seen personally. The beautiful architecture that you can find in this DLC is breathtaking. The views of this world is breathtaking. Everything about the landscapes is just phenomenal. It is absolutely beautiful. This is that open world that I want to live in. But here's the big question. Does any of this beauty really matter? Now, I have heard quite a few times that a beautiful open world makes the open world great. It's not a very popular argument, but it is an argument that I've heard nonetheless. And well, it's probably an argument that I don't really agree with, but hey, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let us start at a point. Why am I specifically talking about open worlds? Why not linear games? Well, the reason is pretty simple. I am talking about open worlds because there's much more exploration, and to some extent you feel more connected to a wider world. You see, the beauty of an open world can most definitely grab your attention. It can command you to just stop what you're doing and, well, take in the view. Video games, open world or not, can take you to settings, destinations, places that otherwise would be impossible to go to in real life. Sure, games like GTA are set in a more modern setting, but there are fantasy games that take you to worlds that you would never be able to experience. A game like Cyberpunk 2077 offers us the opportunity to experience a futuristic setting. Games like the Assassin's Creed franchise allow us to revisit the past. I think the Assassin's Creed franchise is a perfect example of a game offering us something different, due to the fact that it gives us a glimpse of the past. Historians on multiple occasions have praised the Assassin's Creed franchise for its accurate depiction of these ancient places that, well, aren't around anymore, because, you know, time just keeps on going. The thing is, in the modern world, it is pretty simple for us to go and visit the 7 wonders of the world. However, the ancient wonders of the world, they aren't around anymore, except the Great Pyramids of Giza. It's the only one of the ancient wonders of the world still standing. And well, in Assassin's Creed Origins, you can go and visit the pyramids, and you can go and visit the Lighthouse of Alexandria. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you can go and visit the statue of Zeus at Olympia. And well, those are only the ancient wonders of the world in these games. That's not even to mention all the other things that were included in these games that were, well, historically around at those times. Most of these statues and monuments and buildings are not around anymore. And the thing is, it is a unique experience to go back into these games and to see what it was like a few hundred years ago, it is truly a unique experience. And yes, I think a lot of these buildings, these monuments, and well, the landscape in general is what makes a lot of these games beautiful, and it is what makes the experience so special. But I think at its core, that is exactly all that it is. It's an experience. An experience in the sense that you are basically a tourist in a video game. And the thing is, that is appealing to some people, but most people, well, they don't play video games to go on tours. And that of course brings me to my next point, the entire point of what an open world should be. Each and every open world needs a driving factor, a driving element that encourages the player to want to explore the open world. And well, spoiler alert, but this factor is in general not the beauty of the open world. In general, the way the game encourages the player to want to explore is through points of interest. And these points of interest are generally scattered around an open world. These points of interest are very simple and basic activities that you can find within the world that are not necessarily connected to a main or side quest. In general, completing these points of interest will grant the player some kind of reward. This can come in the form of the game's currency, or XP, or even a shiny new weapon. And of course, it goes without saying, but these points of interest are probably the most important element of an open world, as it is the driving factor encouraging the player to explore it. So, with this in mind, of course, when the open world is criticized in general, reviewers are normally talking about the points of interest found within the open world and, well, their quality. Different games use different techniques to incorporate these points of interest within their open world, and they can sometimes differ drastically from one game to another. However, games like The Witcher 3, the Horizon franchise, and the Assassin's Creed franchise basically have the same style of designing their open worlds. But here's the thing, even though these games use the same type of open world design, I think that a lot of the newer Assassin's Creed games especially are way worse in terms of open world design than a game like The Witcher 3. Now, I can go on for quite some time regarding the Ubisoft points of interest, but let's make it pretty simple. The Ubisoft points of interest are very poorly designed, very basic, and just not fun. They are very repetitive. Some of these points of interest are just bland copies of points of interest you have already completed. And of course, other factors can play a part in whether or not a point of interest is good, because if a point of interest is focused on combat and your game has terrible combat like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, well, it's not going to be fun to complete the points of interest. If you start throwing in checklists like Assassin's Creed Odyssey that the player has to complete in order to unlock the maximum XP, it starts to feel more like you are doing homework rather than, having fun. In comparison to The Witcher 3, where most of these activities are pretty fun, they use the game's enemy variety to its advantage. They make a lot of these points of interest very different from one another. Again, I can go on and on about why one game's points of interest are better than the other, but my point is that both of these games have very beautiful open worlds. Both Assassin's Creed Odyssey and The Witcher 3's worlds are fantastic. They are so beautiful, but one game is significantly better to explore because, well, the substance of the game is much better to consume. So let's bring this video to a close. Is the beauty of an open world important? Well, I would say the answer is kind of yes, but mostly no. I think using a cake as an example would be a perfect way of describing what I actually mean by this. You see, the icing and the decorations on the cake can make the cake look beautiful. It can make the cake look memorable. You can look at a cake with pretty decorations and think it's amazing. However, However, once you start eating that cake and the cake tastes bad, well, you aren't really going to enjoy the cake. After all, you don't buy a cake to look at it, you buy a cake to eat it. However, the time you do look at the cake and take in its beauty, well, that should be memorable as well. And I think that basically describes my opinion on the beauty of an open world. Yes, you can walk around to take in the beauty of an open world, but it is going to get old really quickly. Yes, I am somebody who spent time walking around in beautiful open worlds and taking screenshots of the landscape because yes, I am one of those people who actually use photo modes in video games. However, to pretend that I bought a game just to look at the landscape or just to take photos would be silly. The majority of time I spend in games is, well, playing them. And I think that brings me to the conclusion of this video. The beauty of open worlds can definitely enhance your experience of the open world, but at the end of the day, it is the substance of an open world that really counts. Now that is all I have to say in this video. I thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.